Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling a deeply chilling true crime story that kicks off in Kishangar. It's a small town in Rajasthan, India, that's pretty famous for being Asia's largest marble market. Amidst all those gleaming stones and immense wealth, lived a highly successful marble merchant named Bhavani Shankar Sharma. Now, from the outside looking in, his life looked just as polished as the marble he sold. But as we're about to see, behind closed doors, a really dark, meticulously planned betrayal was taking shape.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the central mystery of this entire case hinges on one incredibly specific, frankly, bizarre detail. A gruesome murder happens, the killer goes to extraordinary lengths to make sure the victim can never, ever be identified. And yet, an unusual medical anomaly, a tiny piece of surgical hardware, ends up unraveling the perfect crime. So how in the world does a simple steel wire lead investigators straight to a killer's front door? Let's trace the steps.
Section 1. A gruesome discovery. April 28, 2003, in Ajmer, Rajasthan. So the local police station gets this totally unexpected anonymous phone call. And you have to remember, back in 2003, mobile phones were still pretty rare. So authorities took a call like this very seriously right off the bat. Before the police could even get a single question in, the caller just hung up. But they left behind this horrifyingly exact map. They told police to look for a headless body stuffed in a sack near a local well. If they walked a bit further toward the river, they'd find a burnt head wrapped up in a plastic bag. Oh, and hidden nearby, a separate bag with blood-soaked clothes. Senior officers honestly thought this might be a morbid prank, or maybe the killer just taunting them. But when they got to those locations, every single detail was flawlessly, terrifyingly accurate. They immediately rushed the remains off for a post-mortem. 3 days later, the autopsy report came back, and it painted a brutal picture. The victim had been heavily dosed with sleeping pills, then hit with a massive blow to the back of the head, and the face had been completely burned, showing the killer was absolutely desperate to hide who this was. So the crucial point is this. The medical examiner found a totally unique anomaly, a piece of surgical steel wire implanted right between the victim's left jaw and left eye. This one little detail was about to blow the whole case wide open. Moving right along to Section 2, Unraveling the Identity, the morning newspaper. Fast forward almost a week to May 4th. Picture this. A man named Durga Prasad is just enjoying his morning tea when he opens up the local paper. His eyes land on a police advertisement asking the public for help identifying a murdered man. As he reads about the distinguishing mark, a steel wire beneath the left eye, his teacup literally slips from his hand and shatters on the floor. Just absolute paralyzing terror grips him. He instantly recognizes that unique medical marker because it perfectly matches a surgery his own son, Bhavani Shankar, had to undergo as a child after a terrible accident. You see, Durga Prasad's terror was completely amplified because his son had actually been missing. Bhavani had visited his parents on April 25th, called later that night to say he made it home safe, and then just vanished. For 8 days, he didn't show up to his marble shop, he didn't show up to his office. When a frantic Durga Prasad called Bhavani's wife, Nivi, to ask where he was, she was completely dismissive. She coldly told her father-in-law to basically go find him himself, brushing it off by suggesting Bhavani was probably just out having fun with another woman. She never once asked for help finding her own husband. Huge red flag, right? Now, to lock in the identification, the police knew a family's gut feeling wasn't going to be enough for court. They needed hard proof. So they tracked down Dr. Shiv Shankar Shah from Sir Gangaram Hospital up in Delhi. He was the surgeon who originally operated on Bhavani. Dr. Shah confirmed he had only ever performed 3 of these highly specific wire implant surgeries in the entire state of Rajasthan. He hands over the list, and boom, right there is Bhavani Shankar Sharma's name. The medical records perfectly matched the autopsy. The identity was officially confirmed. But that left the massive question. Why was this successful, wealthy merchant so brutally slaughtered? Well, that brings us to Section 3, The Secret Diary, a marriage on the brink. The police obviously turned their attention to Bhavani's personal life, and what they found was a house just filled with simmering tension. But during their search, they uncovered something that exposed an absolute nightmare. Hidden away was Bhavani's personal daily diary, and on page 134, dated almost a full year before his murder, was this incredibly haunting entry. "I have no choice left but divorce. I am completely broken inside.
Bhavani meticulously documented how Nidhi would mentally and emotionally torture him. He even noted that he had taken her to court just an hour before it closed to officially initiate divorce proceedings.
As investigators kept flipping through the diary, you guys, they found pages literally stained with dried tears. It laid out the true horror of his everyday life. Bhavani was living in this constant, paralyzing fear that his wife was going to drug his food or poison him. He wrote about how he couldn't take her cruelty anymore, but he felt completely trapped because he couldn't bear the thought of ruining his children's future by breaking up the family. And tragically, his intuition about the poison was spot on. Which leads us straight into Section 4, a deadly conspiracy, uncovering the truth.
Armed with this diary, the history of domestic fights, and some pretty severe altercations between Bhavani and Nidhi's brother, the police haul Nidhi and her brother in for questioning. Under that intense pressure, Nidhi's calm facade finally shatters. At first, she tries to justify things by throwing Bhavani under the bus, claiming he was unfaithful in visiting red light districts in Bombay and Delhi. But the cops weren't buying it, and they quickly uncovered the real truth. Nidhi was actually the one having a secret affair, and it was with Bhavani's car driver, a guy named Ashok. She wanted Ashok, and she wanted total control over Bhavani's highly lucrative marble business. Because Bhavani wouldn't just quietly grant a divorce for the sake of the kids, Nidhi decided the only way to get the money and the guy was to eliminate her husband entirely. She lured Ashok the driver into the plot by promising to pay off his car loans and make him rich.
And this brilliantly illustrates the cold, calculating nature of the crime, exactly as Nidhi laid it out in her confession. Step 1. On the morning of April 26, fulfilling the literal worst fears Bhavani wrote about in his diary, Nidhi spiked his morning juice with sedatives. Step 2. Once he was sluggish and passed out, she calls Ashok into the house and he violently attacks Bhavani with a crowbar. But Bhavani kept fighting and regaining consciousness, so Step 3, an enraged Nidhi actually grabs a kitchen knife and slits her own husband's throat. Just brutal. Finally, Step 4, they stuff him in a sack, planning to burn and bury him deep in the forest around 2 a.m., but a random passing police siren completely spooked them. They panicked, dumped the body by a well, scattered the evidence, which is exactly what led to that anonymous phone call days later.
Let's look at our final section, the tragic aftermath, justice and unending greed.
With her confession, the recovered murder weapons, and that heartbreaking diary, the court case was completely airtight. The trial exposed a betrayal so deep, it just shattered this family. Both Nidhi and her accomplice Ashok were found overwhelmingly guilty. They were sentenced to 21 years behind bars for this ruthless, calculated crime. They served their time, and believe it or not, they were actually just released from prison recently, in 2024. But wow, the story does not end with her release. Bhavani's kids, who were essentially orphaned by their mother's unbelievable cruelty, were raised by their grieving grandparents. And when Nidhi got out in 2024, her adult children entirely refused to see or speak to her. Good for them, honestly. The courts had rightfully awarded full custody and all of Bhavani's property to his parents and the kids. You'd think 21 years in prison would bring some remorse, right? No way. Nidhi immediately starts filing new court cases, claiming her kids are unfit to manage the property, relentlessly trying to seize the very wealth she murdered her husband to get. Which leaves us with this final, really haunting question to consider. When does the relentless pursuit of wealth entirely eclipse the value of human life and family? Bhavani Sharma endured agonizing emotional abuse just trying to protect his kids, only to be slaughtered for his own success. It's a really stark reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers aren't lurking in the shadows outside, they're right behind the familiar doors of our own homes. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.